ladies and gentlemen. I'm Namdi, and it's with immense pleasure that I extend a very warm welcome to the 68th session of the Bhutan Dialogues. On behalf of the Director General, faculty, staff, and the students of RM, I would like to welcome everyone to RM, and of course to our distinguished speakers. Since this is your first time to RM, we are privileged and honored to have you here on the RM campus. Welcome to RM. On behalf of the Director General, faculty, staff, and the students, it is with immense pleasure that we are pleased to partner with the Loden Foundation and host this session of Bhutan Dialogues. The theme for today's dialogue is Where Are We Heading? Rethinking Our Education and Development Process. This is a call to critically assess our current systems of education development and the education development. The world is evolving rapidly with developments such as AI and the challenges such as climate change, inequality, and the wars. The situation calls for a fresh look at our approach to development and the challenges the outdated models actually pose. For this, we are fortunate to have exceptional speakers joining us today. Firstly, let me welcome Mr. Sonam, an engineer, innovator, education reformist, and environmentalist. Mr. Wangchuk has dedicated his life to transforming education and fostering sustainable development in the Himalayan region. Having finished his education in mechanical engineering, he founded the Students' Educational and Cultural Movement of Ladakh, revolutionizing the local schooling through hands-on context learning. Widely recognized for his groundbreaking work, including the invention of the ice stupa, artificial glaciers, designed to address the water scarcity, Mr. Wangchuk's unwavering commitment to his community and the environment earned him the prestigious Ramon Magsaysay Award in 2018, and among numerous other accolades. His work solidifies his reputation as a visionary leader, striving for a harmonious balance between human progress and ecological preservation. Next, we are delighted to introduce Ms. Gitanjali Angmo from Ladakh, our second distinguished speaker. A dynamic social entrepreneur and visionary educator, Ms. Angmo has emerged as a transformative force in higher education, particularly within the Ladakh's unique context. As the co-founder, director, and the dean of the Himalayan Institute of Alternatives, Ladakh, she champions an innovative pedagogical approach that emphasizes contextual, experimental, and transdisciplinary learning, all aimed at empowering youth to address the real-world challenges. Beyond her groundbreaking work at HIAL, Ms. Angmo is truly a multi-talented individual, being a champion in karate and a renowned dancer. Moderating this dialogue, we have Dr. Lopon, a distinguished Bhutanese scholar, former monk, and a profound thought leader. Dr. Lopon has dedicated his life to bridging the rich heritage of Bhutanese culture with the challenges and the opportunities of the modern world. Born in Ura, he underwent rigorous monastic training before pursuing advanced studies at the Oxford University, where he earned a doctorate in philosophy in Buddhist studies. As a prolific author, educator, and the visionary founder of the Loden Foundation, he has tirelessly worked to promote education, nurture social entrepreneurship, and preserve Bhutan's invaluable cultural traditions. These profound efforts were recognized with the prestigious Ramon Magsaysay Award in 2024 for his invaluable and enduring contributions towards harmonizing the reach of his country's past with the diverse predicaments and the prospects of its present. As a host rule, please keep your mobiles on silent. And for those joining us online, feel free to give your questions in the live chat. The Bhutan Dialogue team will read out the speakers. Refreshments will be served after the dialogue. And thank you for being here today and for your commitment to the meaningful dialogue. I now hand over to Dr. Loden Phuntsho.
Thank you. Can you hear me? Thank you. Thank you very much, Gitanjali. I think it is in the RIM's tradition to start a session with some reflection and meditation. So let us start with a brief moment of mindfulness. Just bring our awareness to here and now. And our teachers teach us that our thoughts, our mind can be in three different states. Positive one, wanting to do good; negative one, or a neutral one. And we make sure it's in the positive state. And among the positive states, we can aspire to have something good in terms of worldly material achievements. It is an inferior intention. Or we can aspire a bit higher to achieve something more fulfilling, more meaningful beyond this material world. And then the best intention to wish such meaningful, higher spiritual goal of enlightenment for both oneself and all other sentient beings. So in this session, whatever we do, bring benefit to both oneself and all sentient beings. Thank you. So welcome to the 68th session of Bhutan Dialogues, and particularly Julie and 𝐸𝐭 to our two esteemed guests.
Julie.
Bhutan Dialogues is a space for civil conversations, we say, a forum to practice right speech, mindful listening, and critical thinking, trying to push our boundaries of thought, always trying to reevaluate and refine our process of development and human progress. And we've been running this for past 7 years or so. And we have had many honored guests, but it is exceptionally a great honor for us to have you. We've been following your work. I know you had a very busy schedule. Sonam and Gitanjali have come for the operationalizing of GNH in Bhutan and Beyond conference hosted by Narayana Foundation and Georgetown Institute of Open and Advanced Studies. And we had some travel as well. So at such a short notice, thank you for agreeing to speak to the students and the general public here. And thank you also for joining us at such short notice. You were yesterday in Ruka.
Yes.
How was it? That's what I would like to know, because I haven't been there yet.
It was very interesting, deep inside forests and hills, although altitude is not high, but the hills were more frightening than in Ladakh. Yes, and a small village we went to, Ruka.
So at this conversation, we often begin by asking our guests to share a bit more about yourself, especially snippets, sort of short anecdotes that give us an insight into your background, besides the formal CV, to understand in brief what are the milestones in your life, what inspired you to be who you are right now. So maybe I'll start with you and then move on to Gitanjali.
Thank you. I'm Sonam Wangchuk and greet you all Jule as we greet in Ladakh, and I find you all very colorful in your Bhutanese dresses, and I'm colorfully colorless in my white because it stands out when it's so much color, and here she is in Kira. So there's a story about this. I'll just break the ice because it's becoming a little too serious. This is not normal Ladakhi dress that you would see if you see pictures from Ladakh. Yeah, this is Ladakhi peasant's dress that is not promoted, and a little rebellion in me that always takes over brought out this white dress of the peasants and got it made in cotton from Mahatma Gandhi's ashram so that it is not hot in summers. So I'm kind of slightly rebelling to bring out this color of the colorless white. So very happy to be here. Yeah, born in a very tiny village in Ladakh. That was an event that changed my life because the tiny village was so tiny that it had only 5 households. 5 households. I'm sure Bhutan also has, but it's considered very small when I tell my friends from rest of India. But then I tell them, don't worry, today my village has grown 100%. That was long time ago. It is now 10 households from then. So this village is still so small that it doesn't have a school. So I didn't have any schools to go, and that was an event that shaped my life because not having schools is not having education. Schooling actually is not education. Some people say schooling is a hindrance, like Mark Twain famously said, I have never allowed my schooling to interfere with my education. So same was true with me. I learned from everything around me, from neighbors, from sheep herders, the cow herders, jumping into the Indus River next to my village and climbing apricot trees. I learned a lot from them and from my mother in a very not so cluttered, noisy way, but one-on-one. The things that I learned and helped me most was empathy from my mother in a remote Ladakhi village, yeah? And initiative, spirit of initiative from my father, which helped me a lot in doing things on my own, which helped learning. Once you have initiative, spirit of initiative, you learn. Books or no books, schools or no schools, teachers or no teachers. So I got to learn a lot from another event, opening of Ladakh to tourism in 1974. When I was very little, tourists started coming into Ladakh from Europe and America, and I, being very curious, would learn from them in my broken language because I spoke only Ladakhi, but bit later, I could speak a little and would ask them about their country, their land, and I would keep hearing very contrary reporting from them. Whereas from New Delhi and Mumbai, I would hear West is best, London is best, New York is best. These tourists from London and Paris would say, no, our social fabric is breaking down, our environment is breaking down. These were very early signs of environmental breakdown in the West. Acid rain, ozone hole, so very early I learnt about those and started wondering why all this. New Delhi tells me, study hard so you can be like London, this country can be. And the people from London tell me, we have been there, done that, and there's nothing up there. It's like somebody coming from the high pass, coming back and saying, don't climb, it's not worth. So this shaped my life a bit. Then I was dragged into schools at age 9. There ended my true learning, I always say, because then it was memorizing and all that. But I tried not to memorize and learn by understanding, and developed a fondness for science and loved it and followed it again to solve problems in Ladakh. I fell in love with my chapter on optics, light and lenses, to think of how it could be used in remote cold Ladakh to make places warm and grow things in winter. And that took me to engineering college, where I studied. And another thing that shaped my life was, in engineering college I had to seek financial support, because I had some differences with my father, who could have easily afforded, but he wanted me to do civil engineering because there is more scope. I'm sure you hear such things from your parents, so maybe I should share. And my whole purpose was to follow lenses and mirrors, and that was supposed to be in mechanical engineering, and that's why I chose. And then on that difference, my father said, if you want to do mechanical, you will do it on your own, don't expect anything from me. I think my father was just testing my determination. You know, when parents force something on you, I've learned that it's mostly to test it's a test of your determination. Whether they mean to or not, it's basically a test of your determination. If you're seriously determined, they finally come to terms. So I said thank you and said I'll do it on my own, my engineering. That was easier to say than actually do. So I had to earn. So I started teaching. When I started teaching, I learned about the education system and the horrors in it. And therefore I ended up becoming an education reformer as soon as I finished my engineering. So these are some things that shaped my life. And the Westerners who talked about environmental crisis and the schooling mess that I saw while teaching children, mainly to support my own education, but then I said engineering can wait, but these children can't. So I went back to Ladakh when my friends were going to the Silicon Valley, and started changing the education system there, and later the environmental situation. So that brings me here today. Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. I think we'll discuss much more about what you're doing with regard to education and environmentalism. I want to just comment on your dress. Here in Bhutan, when you're dressed in pure white, you're hak karpo, which in Ladakh, I suppose you'll understand. Also
Yes.
pure white.
Pure
white. And when people reach the age of 80, sometimes even as early as 60, Lama may say you must do a transformation of your identity, including your body, and they'll switch to a pure white cloth. But you're not yet there. It's often when people are retiring, so we hope you will not reach there.
Aspire for
a long time. But I want to ask Gitanjali, how did you come to sort of meet and work together?
Yeah, before that, I'll tell you a bit about my life and journey as well. So I was growing up in another idyllic part of India, which is the coastal India in Orissa. Though my parents came from undivided India, Lahore in Pakistan, my grandparents. But I was born and brought up in Orissa. And the earliest memory I have about my childhood is when I used to watch some Hindi movies. I used to always see that the hero is always a man, the boss. And the girl is always the secretary. And I didn't like it. I just thought, why can't the girl be the boss? When I grow up, I'll be the boss. And many years later, when I did my MBA, I actually had a male secretary. So the other memory I have is when I watched Hindi movies, I would see the girl is tied up to a couch like this and shouting, "Bachao, bachao," And then I used to wonder, why can't she fend for herself, She can protect herself and also others. Why is she calling the hero for help? So that's when I grew up. I learned karate and I'm a second dan black belt, which he just announced.
And today I say, "Bachao."
And also won the world championship at Pittsburgh in US. The other memory and to become who I am today was I found myself interested in almost everything. I enjoyed sports, I enjoyed dancing, I enjoyed singing, I enjoyed mathematics, physics, even Hindi and Sanskrit. And it was not normal. So it was those days considered jack of all trades. And I had this identity crisis because I would get maybe a 98 in maths, but somebody is getting 100, you know. I got a second prize in long jump, but there's a sports star. So I was always almost there, though I won the, the all-rounder championship, but I was never the best at anything. And so I wondered what it is for a person like me, you know, what kind of a career. Till 2-3 things happened, and in class 7 I came to study about Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci. And it gave me such a sigh of relief that there was another person who had so many interests. You know, he was an artist, a sculptor, a physicist, a mathematician, and all of that. So that it was okay to have so many interests. And later, when I went to Pondicherry and studied Sri Aurobindo's integral education, so it was even more, gave me that confidence that this was a result of industrial revolution, that you had to specialize, you know, you had to be either a humanities person or a arts person or a science person. But before that, we were all Renaissance people. We were all integral people. So that tremendously changed the way I looked at education and life and myself. That you don't tell you are a scientist or an engineer or any one thing. You can grow and become the job at hand, you know. You can develop all your skills and be a lifelong learner, and whatever comes your way, you can keep learning. And these are some of the early memories of my life. And one of the events that changed my life was meeting a realized soul when I was just 16. He was an enlightened person in Sri Aurobindo Ashram in Pondicherry, and I had the good fortune to be associated with him for more than 20 years and learn about the deeper values and spiritual aspects of life. So yeah, these are some of the early memories.
But, your connection to Ladakh.
So
earlier you asked me to guess. I wouldn't have guessed a combination of Lahore and Orissa.
And Pondicherry.
How did you end up on high Ladakh
yes.
area?
So as I told you, for many years I was living like a schizophrenic. I was a topper in the system, but I was following Sri Aurobindo's integral education. And when I reached a point in my mid-30s, I had set up 3 businesses. I was looking to set up an educational institute which would have this integral education. And around this time, Sonam and I, we met in Bombay. He was there for a conference, for an education conference. And that's when we discussed about this university that he was thinking about, and it hadn't yet been set up. And he invited me to come to Ladakh to see the university, and I was inviting him to come to Pondicherry and help me set up the school. So that's how it started. And when I came to Ladakh, it was like one thing after the other. I initially just came to help get the land in order, or some initial funding and some strategy document and so on. But before I knew it, I found myself the co-founder, you know, building this university. And it is a very different kind of university. We'll talk about it later. But that's what that it has never been done before was what attracted me to do it.
So let's talk about education. I think we'll cover environment and also some part of your political activism, if the time permits. The topic we chose today is, are we heading, where are we heading? Are we heading in the right direction or the wrong direction? What is your general take looking at the world, without sort of going to the specifics of Ladakh or Bhutan, but generally speaking, where is humanity heading?
Not easy. In the short term, it's heading towards an imminent disaster. particularly because what we thought of as a blessing to, own so much, to consume so much, is becoming the biggest trap that we could have imagined. So in the short term, there's so much happening: industrialization, wealth, growth, and so on. Basically, it's human greed for more and more that's taking us beyond fulfilling our needs towards our greeds, and that's killing the planet. And I think that's happening mostly because we have, in our evolution of human race, come out of an era of scarcity. If you look back few hundred years ago, no matter which part of the world, people were short of everything, from food to clothing to housing and so on. And they had been for many millennia. And because of that inertia, even after we invented industrial revolution, which could more than fulfill all our needs, we are overdoing it, and today we are dying. This planet is dying almost, especially the human race, not because of shortages but because of excesses. So in the short run, I see a huge threat. In the long term, I also understand that this is also a phase. Because of the scarcity, we are so taken over by greed. There will be a time when human minds will evolve out of it. Like we come out of all fads, no? Maybe 20 years ago, everything plastic, nylon was such a big thing. Today we hate to even have a sight of plastic. Likewise, this consumerism may go away and people will evolve or enlighten themselves out of this material pursuit into wanting less and less and less at an era when less becomes the aspirational thing rather than the more, But that will take too long, and we don't have that long for the planet in climate change. And therefore, unless we do something drastic, particularly through our education system. Our education system is a, kind of fast track evolution of the mind, mechanism for that. So unless we do something, this evolved, unless there is a revolution, evolution will take too long, and by that it will be lost. So that's what I see.
Yeah, so I agree with this, but I would like to take it to some larger sweeps, okay? I'm not talking about next maybe 50 years or 100 years. So I'll just take you through the human cycle very briefly, and how we are moving in the right direction, whether or not we like it. So the Vedic age, which was about 7,000 years ago, was a symbolic age. Where everything had a symbol. Even today, some tribal and mystical countries, they follow symbols. Life is it's not about the thing itself, but what it symbolizes. After that, we move to a typal age, where the symbols begin to lose their meaning and people start taking more and more the literal meaning of it. And then we came to the conventional age, which was the dark ages, where the symbols completely lost meanings. Everything became ritualistic, superstitious, and we called it the Dark Ages. To counter that, we had the Age of Reason, which was the Industrial Revolution. Age of individualism, age of reason, which started questioning everything. That why are we doing? What is behind this ritual? What is behind this thing? And that is what we were experiencing in the last 400 years. Science was trying to answer the questions of rituals, superstitions, of the Dark Ages, because we had forgotten the symbols. So, where we are headed from here, Age of Reason, is Age of Subjectivity. In the last 400 years, we have only understood the objective reality. Education was about understanding from the galaxy to the atom, the objective reality. But we do not know what is our subjective self. What do we think? What do we feel? What are the narratives? Where is the truth? The subjective. And AI is accelerating that. So today, AI can do up to many things that human mind can do, right? So where is human to go from here? What is it that AI cannot do? So AI cannot have that individual taste, that individual subjectivity. AI can take all that is done in the past and give you answers. But if I have to do something new in this world, what is the point of view that I bring in? That is what will be the future careers also. So it is very important for everybody, for education, to teach where the truth is. What is truth? The subjective thing. And that is where we are headed. And I'm happy to say that technology is accelerating that, because we have all the answers, objective answers that ChatGPT can give. But out of that, which is the true answer? What is my answer that relates to my evolution? That is something education now has to do. And that is what will make teachers not, repositories of information or data, but they have to live those principles. And as the Gurukul system was, they have to be the lead by example. So we have to become truly more human, both in terms of creative thinking and in terms of inner deep empathy, compassion and feeling. So, and technology is helping us to do that. But education has to quickly, bring us to that point. And that's where we come to the education of the future, which we will take up in the next question. So I'm happy that we are on the right track. Yes, in the next 300-400 years, we would have done away with our desires, we would have done away with a lot of consumerism, and countries like China are helping there. They're demystifying, consumerism. Because today, because of countries like China, everything is cheaply available. So very soon people will be fed up of all the materiality, because they would have experienced everything. And then very soon, within our lifetimes, in the next 30-40 years, we will have people looking for deeper truths in life and deeper subjectivity, and that's where we have to train our children.
Yeah, well, I share a similar sort of view on human trajectory, I must say. I mean, if you go with our traditional worldview, which is pretty much based on the Vedic worldview, you have this 40 eons in the past, and you are now basically living the Kali Yuga. So we are in a very degenerate age. But then, when you look at modern sort of historical approaches, you see how we have come all the way from hunter-gatherers to agriculturists to industrialists, and then now into the digital age. And on many fronts, like gender equality, animal rights, in many areas we are progressing. So I generally like to think of an ascending scale of human development. But then, as you said, sometimes the mistakes we make are so big that we may lose the whole sort of future, that we may not be able to really evolve, especially with the climate issue, which is so intense and serious. Now let's just go to some specific things, talking about how we can change the future. You have been working with this special school, the 𝐸𝐭 project. What is something that you can share with Bhutan that the Bhutanese can take up and also apply in their own situation? Something that is relevant to Bhutan. In terms of, I think 𝐸𝐭 is more with school, and then you have higher, which is more for university. And I think both of these are so relevant to change the school system and the college system here. If you can give the practical, specific tips and examples.
Yeah, specifically speaking, both at 𝐸𝐭 and 𝐻𝐼AL, we speak of 3 H's rather than 3 R's of education. The Western English idea was 3 R's, reading, writing, arithmetics, which we think is all head stuff, intelligence or intellectual exercise. So one thing we try to stress in Ladakh is skills of the hands also, not just head. 3H meaning, unlike reading, writing and arithmetic, that comes under the bright head, which we all must have, as good as New York or London. But what we forget often is the skills of the hands. We make our education so intellectual, even more than the Europeans themselves, that we limit it to just textbooks and exams. And in India, many schools go for IB and Cambridge and things, saying it has a little more of experiential education. Whereas our culture is so much based on skills of the hands. We have always valued skills of the hands. And even since Bhutan has Buddhist culture, you must have heard a lot about what do you call, critical thinking, etc. Our education doesn't even reach the right level of head part. It stops short of critical thinking, analytical thinking, just memorizing and so on. And we think these boards in the West are encouraging critical thinking, analytical thinking, and experiential education. And as I said, I don't know about Bhutan, many are steering towards those boards. I try to tell them and remind them that India is actually a leader in such kind of education. 2,500 years ago, Gautama the Buddha talked about learning or wisdom being of three kinds, and you strive for the highest. So Buddha, explaining to his disciples about ways to achieve wisdom, I find it so interesting. He said, you have pragya, prajna or panya in Pali, of three kinds. Shrutmai pragya. Shrutmai is heard wisdom or read wisdom that we get from textbooks and are tested in exams. Shrutmai pragya is fine, but it is like drawing a line on water. It will be gone by the time you finish it. That's not enough. It's good beginning. Then he would say, higher is the chintanmai pragya or prajna. Chintan is thought, reflected, analyzed, critically thought. So this is what I feel today is what we talk about, critical thinking and reflective wisdom. Shrutmai and then chintanmai pragya, which is much higher than this read or heard wisdom. And for this he gave the example to his disciples. This is like writing on the beach, in sand. It will last much longer than water, but in a week or two it will also be gone. So this is not true wisdom. Finally he goes on to say the final higher way of attaining wisdom is bhavanamaya pragya. Bhavana is to be, to become is to experience. So experienced wisdom is what you have to go for. So these critical thinking and analytical thinking and experiential learning, it's way beyond to talk about wisdom, is thousands of years old, and we lost our way, lost all these things, became all Shrutmai, and are then, galvanized on these boards in the West, whereas India and Bhutan, who share similar heritage of Buddha's enlightened wisdom, should show the way to the world that it has to be more than just head. It has to be hands, experience through the hands, and analytically so. And finally we say skilled hands is also not enough unless you have a kind heart. Without a kind heart you can misuse your hands and head, and that will be the worst thing for the world. All these bad things that are happening in the world have both a bright head and skilled hands, but don't have a kind heart. So therefore it's very important that we from the East show the way to the world, to go to the hands in a really effective way. So at SECMOL we stress a lot on engaging in all activities, from farming to raising cows to building your own school. This is a school that the students built themselves, they design and they run it. Skills meaning of managing the school. This school is managed like a little country with its own little constitution, little parliament, little election, electing a government for 2 months, because everybody needs to get. And in those 2 months, they have to manage everything. And grown-ups are there for support, but in the background. So, and it actually helps the grown-ups, because when children are taking care of everything, they get all the time to be creative. Normally in schools, the teachers are chasing after syllabus and discipline. Discipline is totally taken care because they are in charge. And teenagers actually need more respect and responsibility. They'll do very well without grown-ups. We make ourselves needed by being there. So these are things. I'll go to the hard part later, but these are things that we try to do.
Is it true? I've been hearing this a lot, that to qualify for 𝐸𝐭, you have to have failed in a regular school. Meaning those who didn't fail in regular schools wouldn't be able to get into your school.
Technically, this is right. This is actually right. The criteria of admission is failure rather than distinctions and marks. That could keep you on the waiting list. But failure will get you in. And if you have failed many times, a red carpet. Why I am saying technically it is correct is because this school was created for those who were failing in the system. We refuse to believe that they are really failing. They are not failing, the system is failing. The system is so bad that doing badly in a bad system is good. No? You know, in mathematics, negative makes a positive. Yeah? So we say doing badly in a bad education system might be good. So let's try again and relaunch them. And therefore, because it was a school for those who had nowhere to go, having failed. So of course it had to have that criteria. Now our problem is not enough are failing.
And some of the practical things of this philosophy that we do at Hayal are, for instance, the way we define youth or the age that we intake are postgraduates, but it is not your biological age, but how young you are to learn. So we have even students who can be in their 50s, you know, but they have this youthfulness. So we've done away with age as a criteria. Then we've done away with qualification as a criteria, because I don't know in Bhutan, but in India, your undergrad subjects are mostly picked up by what your parents or your teachers have said, you know. So we don't look at your undergrad subjects. Whereas we look at three things in admission, some practical things. One is, what is your portfolio of work? You know, you may have graduated in psychology, but if you've built buildings and you're interested in architecture and you can demonstrate that, then we take such people. The second is, there is a question that what are the 2 times that you failed in your life and what did you do after that? Because we are too much focused on talent, you know. Talent can open only the first door. But resilience to get up after you failed is what takes you till the end. So 2 examples of where they failed and what did they do about themselves is the second question. And the third question is, what is their big idea of life? So we want to take kids who are not looking at livelihood alone. You know, they should have a big project that they want to change the world about. So this is the admission criteria, which is very different. And then the way the pedagogy goes is, we have only 30% of the time they spend in the classrooms, and that was discussions and projects. 70% is on the fields. And these are not curated projects, these are real life projects. Like, you know, rehabilitating a village or making ice stupas or solving the problems. And that's something Bhutan can do. You know, there is so much of natural resources here. So instead of buying wood from Malaysia, you know, there can be a whole timber industry here, like in Finland.
They're trying to cut the Malaysian trees and keep the Bhutanese ones. If they are buying from Malaysia, I don't know.
Yeah. And some practical things are, generally in India and also rest of the world, you have either research universities or academic universities. So at Hayal, we do away with white collar and blue collar, because an architect need not sit in his glass chamber, you know, he has to be on the site. So we combine academics, research and entrepreneurship. So you start with an innovation, you make a prototype, you write research papers about it, and you finally make it and scale it up into a business. So these are some of the practical ideas that we implement, and the whole program is transdisciplinary. So this is bringing Da Vinci into the classroom.
Just to add to that, our belief is, we don't know it will succeed or not, is that young people in their teenagers are so capable if they are allowed to. As I said, if you give them respect and responsibility, they can do a lot. Now at Hayal or an university, it's young people in their 20s. For God's sake, people in their 20s can go win the world over. Alexander was what? Less than 30 or so.
23.
Yeah, by the time he had conquered the world. So why should we keep them in classrooms lectured? Why can't they be working on real life projects that are solving real life problems? So apart from artificial glaciers and rehabilitation of climate affected valleys, for example, solar heated houses. Ladakh is so cold, it needs a solution. We don't have fuel, we don't have trees like you. So the sun we have has to be put to use, and at this school and university we do everything with solar energy. There's hardly a drop of oil that is used for heating the houses. We stay at plus 20, even in minus 20 with just sun's energy. Now to take it to people who need it, hotels, offices, most importantly military. There's such huge military presence in Ladakh, and they come from tropical hot climates. So they have to be kept warm. You can imagine the amount of oil is burnt and emission caused. So our students work on projects that solve the military's problem by building solar heated shelters for the army. And when you do that, when you solve their problems, they are happy to pay for you, your service. So we get paid. And if their engagement and creativity is paid by a needy client, then why do we need to charge fees or fleece the students, huge fees?
So at Hayal, we don't charge fees to the students. These prototypes that are scaled up become enterprises. The students run these enterprises, and the surplus that is generated funds their education. So we in fact pay them stipends.
So idea is that, yes, all universities in the world should be at least free, if not pay by engaging them. And only when you engage, true education happens. Otherwise, just Shrutmai Pragya happens, right? And so when you do that, education becomes democratic. People who cannot pay in currency can always pay in sweat and creativity. And that's what we are asking, not fees.
And some of you here are maybe management, financial students. And I remember when I was a management student, we were given case studies. It was a big deal those days, case studies. And I was 20, I remember, and I had a case study. If you were the Pepsi's CEO, global CEO, what would be your strategy for Africa? Now, first of all, a 20-year-old in India, how do I know what is the African market? How can I think like a global CEO? And so all that we were doing in those case studies in that MBA was writing some theory and trying to get marks, trying to be clever. Whereas next door, where I was studying in Bhubaneswar, there was this Pipli town where there was a lot of handicraft that was being done, Pipli handicraft. And we used to feel a lot because that was a dying art. So our MBA institution could have given that as a project to us, to make branding, marketing strategies, to make business plans out of it, take it to the world, So that's what we are trying to now do at Hayal, that the issues and problems around Ladakh, and that's what every university can do. There are plenty, especially in Asia. Luckily, most of the countries are not developed, because Europe, you won't have so many problems to solve. But in India and Bhutan and a lot of countries in Asia, we have a lot of problems to solve. And entrepreneurship and innovation is just solving those problems, and making the students empowered to solve your local problems, and you can make, world-class companies out of that. That could be another practical takeaway.
So as you work on this kind of alternative model, you are working against a very strong tide of this mainstream culture where even in education you have the cognitive cerebral achievements rated much, much higher than other intelligences and skills. For instance, here in Bhutan, due to the pressure we are receiving on the economic front of young people being unemployed or at least not finding a meaningful job, a lot of them emigrating. So as a result, there is a push even for STEM, which is much more employable or perceived to be more employable. And most state colleges here have officially dropped humanities. So when you are against such a current, your alternative model, how would you manage the graduates to move beyond the school and be relevant at the path forward?
I think the world learned that STEM was not enough, and that's why I introduced STEAM, arts, because as Sonam was saying, if you just have the skills of the hands and the head without the heart, you can make monsters. So humanities is an integral part of any education. In olden India, all the kings and queens and normal public, they would study the 64 kalas, the 64 arts. And that is what inspired the West to have the liberal arts program. And the West has now made a very strong liberal arts program, whether you are a STEM student or not. Because as I was telling you earlier, the world is now moving towards subjective knowledge. What do I think? Who am I? What do I bring? Even as an engineer, it is important to understand the person, the society, the narratives that are being given to us. Today, if I want to know about Air India that crashed, there are 5 absolutely opposite versions. You don't know where the truth is. So humanities is a necessary part of education because it makes you, by definition, human. And a human is a person who can sift through all the narratives that are there and arrive at the truth. Because technology is just a tool. Engineering is not becoming, is not evolving into a human. It's just a tool. But in whose hand the tool has to be, that humanities guides. What is the quality of the person who will handle the tool. So I think it is very important to have humanities to be integrally woven into the education system. And beyond humanities, I think it is important to move into, especially countries like India and Bhutan and the Asian countries. We somehow, because we've been following the Western model, we have forgotten what we have given to the world. So beyond humanities, we have to bring spirituality into the curriculum, into mainstream. And spirituality is nothing woolly or something that, it is as scientific, as finding out who am I, which we have long forgotten to find out, who am I. So the Japanese call it ikigai. What is my purpose? Who am I? What am I born for? The Indians and the Buddhists, they call it swadharma. What is my swadharma? To find that out is the purpose of education, and technology, engineering, STEM can be picked up along the way. Education has to be beyond STEM into making us complete human beings.
Yeah, I think we have a lot of work to do on that front, I think, to change the vast majority of humanity where we think of the job market and people rarely recruit on the basis of how good hearted you are, but more on how sometimes skilled and knowledgeable you are, but even to the worst point of how cunning and clever you are. But let's move now to what you already brought up, your environmental work through the schools and college. You have been very well become famous for the ice stupa, but then if you look at the world at large, I personally feel we are in a kind of a vicious circle, that because there's more global warming, there's more bushfires and floods and whatnot, and that creates more global warming. Is there really hope for us to contain the external heat and the changes? Would it be better actually to invest in the internal resilience and innovation?
Yeah, so like Bhutan, Ladakh being in the Himalayas and high Himalayas is even more vulnerable to climate change, and we are seeing effects everywhere in Ladakh. As you may know, these effects are more acute in higher mountains. So our glaciers are going away, and we struggle. So these artificial glaciers or ice stupas are fine. That's a response to adapt to what is happening. Similarly, this solar heated houses is a step to mitigate and adapt to this. But we always say these are not really solutions. These are small fixes that we are forced to do up in the Himalayas. The real answer, I always go around the world and say, the real answer is not in Ladakh, not in Bhutan. It's in New York, it's in London, it's in Paris. It's how people live their lives in these developed, so-called developed cities. And not just to blame them for their lives, but the thinking behind. Like Mahatma Gandhi said, no, this planet has everything for each one's needs, but not enough for each one's greed. So this mentality needs to change. Unless the world brings down its needs, but first starting with greed, yeah, and simplifies the life so that they are happy with less resources. And that's where I think happiness, as Bhutan promotes, should be, of being happier with less resources, being truly efficient, truly efficient. That's where all education, all religion and spirituality should lead to, and they always have done. Just that the so-called development sector and modern education broke away and started its own course, and we can see the effects of this everywhere. Now, institutes of management in places like Bhutan or even India should show that model of development. And when I talk about simplifying lifestyles to the people of the world, I give always this message: please live simply in your big cities so that we in the mountains can simply live. Yeah? Live simply so we can simply live. Now that is more than just cutting down on this or that. That's a way of life that people are going towards. And therefore I tell them, when they find it very odd to hear, live simply even if you have all the money and resources, they think of my message somewhat woolly or new agey or like a guru or something. Then I remind them, and I'll remind you here, that actually even if we went by hardcore modern economic theories, they hint towards this. Most economists in the world conveniently take the more part and ignore the less part. For example, being in a management institute here, I'll give you two theories that doesn't come from Buddha's time or from the East even. It comes from modern economics. You may have learnt already about law of diminishing marginal utilities. It's a beautiful thing. I think this comes from Buddha almost, yeah? But they ignore, they never talk about it. Law of diminishing marginal utilities, if it is brought to life, is like your first pair of shoes. If you are in a forest, have no shoes, it pricks a lot, it's inconvenient, it's hard. When you get your first pair of shoes, it gives you so much satisfaction. Then you develop and you have a second pair of shoes. It's good, but it's nothing like the first pair of shoes. Then you become now earning and well off, and you buy a third pair of shoes, a fourth pair of shoes. They have nothing compared to the first, but they take the same amount of resources and money to make, and therefore emission, pollution. And now people are busy shopping for their 44th pair of shoes. Yeah? So they are not going by their own economic theories. If they went for law of diminishing marginal utilities, nobody should be buying a 10th pair of shoes or an 11th, leave aside 44th, but they are doing. So they are not even listening to their economic gurus, leave aside Buddha, and therefore I add a little twist, which could be a Ladakhi twist or a Bhutanese twist. When I speak to people in India or in other parts of the world, I say, but actually I think you should buy the 45th pair of shoes also. And they go, what? Yes, you should buy the 45th pair of shoes, but not for yourself. Buy it for somebody who it is the first pair of shoes. Then you can derive that vicarious 100% satisfaction once again, a 45th time, a 46th time, and you take happiness out of that. So what I'm trying to say is that modern economics even teaches what Buddha taught. It's not something touchy-feely, and that's where we should lead our young people towards less and less. And you know, economics always talks about efficiency. Everything should be efficient. How efficient is it to have 44 things when only the first few are giving you any satisfaction? They live very inefficiently and teach efficiency.
So, unfortunately, even in a place like Bhutan, we have these unhealthy consumption practices. Our consumption habits have actually shot through the roof, while we have probably not been able to bring the production on par with it. So, a major sort of imbalance. We have a lot to work on being productive and also curbing consumption. But I get this question asked a lot as well. How, as a Buddhist, could you promote entrepreneurship and production? Should we be curbing our greed? And just as you said, my response is, if you are producing for just yourself, then you ought to have a limit. You need to have contentment. But if you're producing for society, then you have to add value, and any amount of value is good.
I just remember this another great teaching from Buddha that guides me, since you brought this up. Today we seek models of success, no? Successful, so and so is a success story, I want to follow, and so on. Maybe this came up in Buddha's time also. So perhaps somebody asked, who is a success, O Buddha? And Buddha once said, for a human being, it's a greater success or a greater achievement to conquer a single desire than to fulfill 1,000. Fulfilling 1,000 is easier, but a successful one is one who dissolves the desire, even if one. Now we are chasing after fulfilling 1,000, 1,001, 1,002, and that is a part of the modern development concept. Buddha's way was inwards, conquer inwards and be a role model. And I hope one day that's what we'll lead our young people towards. Sorry.
Yeah, so actually the world population today, 8 billion, is not actually sustainable. Earth had never had this kind of population, and it came because we just struck gold in the form of fossil fuels. The fossil fuels, coal and oil and all of these things which for millions of years Earth had been producing. So during the Industrial Revolution we found it. And that has been the cause of easy food. Earlier we grew our food. So you had maybe 4 festivals in a year where you made all those special food because it was your own farm and you grew it. Now you walk into a supermarket and you can buy anything. So the times we are living now is not real. It is artificial because it is just we happen to get that fossil fuel. And very soon, like coal and oil is all on the decline. It's going to be over, if not 50 but 100 years. And life is going to come back to non-consumerism based life. And that is when people are now distracted. It's like if somebody gives you a gift, very beautifully packaged and wrapped. In India nowadays, in marriages, they give you very beautifully wrapped. So you don't even want to open it, because the gift wrapping is so beautiful. So today, all these distractions, which is causing this consumerism, is like that beautiful gift, but very soon it's going to go away. And on one hand, technology, AI, which is going to challenge human evolution, and on the other hand, the resources that are there in the world, which we take for granted, including water and fresh air, are going to go away, and we are going to be forced to coming back to rethinking our lives, which are not going to be based on consumerism and more on finding fulfillment in human evolution, of high thinking and simple living. So that is why, again, coming back to liberal arts education, coming back to education. So we are not saying that the West has developed, they have used the resources, and when now it's the time for East to develop, we are saying you are emitting carbon and all of that. So Maslow's hierarchy also talks about we have to have our physical needs in order, in place. But the problem today is, I open my Instagram and just because somebody is in Paris on a holiday, I want to go there, So we have to teach our kids to find out what they want and to have resources for that. They should be able to generate resources for that. But it should be a true need, and not just a mindless copying of others. So teaching that, what do I need, is where education should be headed.
Thank you. Yeah, I hope we will get there to believe in small is beautiful and less is more. Simple living, high thinking. Now it's almost over, it's over an hour already, and there's so much we can discuss. I'll, before opening to the floor, ask you my fun question to both of you. You can give me one or two responses. What would you do as a priority if you are the Prime Minister of India? And the response should be beyond the statue photo of Ladakh, for which you have been having hunger strikes, which is of course obvious.
So, related to what we are doing, but at a national level, if I was the Prime Minister, I would give these states that there are in India much more autonomy to become almost like countries themselves. India is a big economy, but it's nothing compared to its size. It's a huge giant, nearly 1/4 or so of the population of the world. But to that level, it's not realizing, not in growth, which may or may not be good, but even in fulfilling the basic needs of the people. So I always say that when Ladakh seeks autonomy and safeguards like 6th schedule, if you've been following, I say that actually not only Ladakh, all parts of India should have it, so that every state, West Bengal is the size of Germany or so. Haryana is the size of Israel. You can imagine so many nations there, and yet because of the centralized nature, each they don't feel ownership of that place, and then they leave for Silicon Valley or other places. So a federation of very self-reliant and
more
autonomous nations would be.
China has done that to some extent, isn't it, for economic growth? Centralized political power, but very much
economically decentralized, politically centralized. I'd like to make both decentralized and have the confidence that while you have Kashmiriyat in Kashmir, Gujaratiyat in Gujarat, Punjabiyat in Punjab, Ladakiyat in Ladakh, there'll be Hindustaniyat overall. That's what is unity in diversity to me.
Yeah, thank you. What I would do is what should have been done 75 years ago when India got its freedom. I would set up a ministry of decolonization which would look at each and every practice that we follow in our daily lives, to the national systems that we follow, to the various frameworks that we follow, and rid it of the colonial hangover and bring in the indigenous knowledge. I mean, take the best of the West, but rediscover the indigenous knowledge systems, and everything that we do in our public, social, political, intellectual life, has to be decolonized, and rather in its place has to be installed the Indian genius, the Indian way of doing and being and becoming.
Thank you. That is a tough challenge. We can talk to each other because we have the colonial legacy of English. I wish we have more local languages between us. Anyway, with this, let's open to the floor. Let's see what the audience here and also online audience. We always live stream events, so there are questions perhaps from the virtual audience as well. Anyone? Yes,
Yeah.
let's find the first.
My name is Ramon and I'm a 8th grader at Gitanjali High Secondary School. My question is, Mr. Sonam sir, I really enjoy singing and music and I'm really passionate about it, but I'm also good at my studies, and just like the movie Three Idiots, which was based on your work, we students or all of us learners, sometimes we also have this point where we feel like we should give up our passion and find a safe career like engineering or medicine. So what would you like to see if we could still continue loving our passion and also planning for a good future?
Thank you. Thank you for a thoughtful question. I would say look at the level of your interest. If you're seriously, deadly interested and are really good, you may then decide towards music as a career also. If not, you can always do music while doing something being practical also. Because if you're not really good and you opt and you don't make it, then your parents won't be happy to see you not well placed, right? So if you're really, really seriously good, go for it. Why not? If not, you continue music, don't drop it, but think of a second best that will also give you the livelihood and can support your interest. So you have to balance between what you really love and what can bring you income also. Like Ikigai is based on these things. So I would say judge among various interests.
Can I? Yeah, I'll give you a more radical solution. So I believe that we have reached a point in time where they are not fixed careers and you fit into it anymore, okay? We've reached a time when each of you here can make your own careers by bringing your talents, combining it. Like 50 years ago, we did not have something like biotechnology, right? Biology is different, technology is different. But somebody could combine it. So I believe that future is going to be more and more Renaissance people. Okay, you can combine different aspects and come up with careers which will combine singing with whichever subject you choose to do. And that's what is for you to find out with the help of your mentors. So not to give up either, and not just these two. Maybe you're just in your 8th grade. By the time you reach your 10th, 12th, you will develop interest in other subjects. Okay, and you have to find a platform or a canvas where all of these come into play.
Yeah,
So I'll give you my own example. So Hayal is for me that canvas, the university. Because I'm a dancer, I'm a karateka, I teach Vedas and Upanishads, philosophy, I teach business, I'm an entrepreneur, It cannot get more diverse than this. But the canvas of Hayal is the career that I have chosen for myself. where I can today start a course in performing arts, I can start a course in horse riding, you know, I can start a fellowship in a particular leadership. So do not think in binaries anymore. We have reached a point in human evolution where you can bring all of who you are and create a career for yourself. And think beyond the existing careers. Think of setting up your own career, your own path.
Thank you for the question. And I will add, we are having much longer lifespan now, so our careers will keep changing. And I think we should be open to living in different places, doing different things.
You heard about Sonam. He studied to be an engineer, but he did his education. Now he's doing political activism. He's an environmentalist. I studied to do my physics honors, and then my MBA, and then my MPhil in philosophy. Then I did my PhD in education. And you just keep growing where you find a calling, a true calling, but not take and leave it, and whatever you take up, take it to a level of excellence, and then you will find that the dots will start connecting. So right now, just follow your passion for singing, follow your studies and everything. Don't choose.
Yes. Are there any questions online? If you do, you can read it out after the next question.
Thank you so much, especially to Dr. Sonam and Gitanjali, and of course to Dr. 𝐸𝐭, 3 luminaries up on the stage. Can we give a big hand? I think the question that the young lady asked, I always told my daughters, I have 3 of them, so when they ask me for advice, I say, you can be the best singer, but please study engineering first. But of course, some listen, some did not really listen. And I think it's a big cultural pressure, right? I mean, I remember the joke also when Rishi Sunak was elected the Prime Minister, and Indian parent asked, what? He's not an engineer, now he's just become a Prime Minister. But my point is, I think here we have also been digging back into our wisdom in Buddhist or Vedics. And something that was very interesting to me was the 3-4 stages of life. So the first 20 years is you focus on education. Don't worry about anything, right? I mean, good or bad education, that's a different question. And then after that is you focus on making money, Juno-Videshi. So in Dzongkha we call it, the wealth stage. And then of course, after that is then, when you get back to the society. So, I don't know, sometimes I feel it's maybe better to advise your young people rather than really taking them into the area of non-binary and non-dualism, which then becomes very complex. Simplify it, as we used to do back in the good old days. That's one. The other reason why I'm saying this is, looking at the global shift in this, not only politics, but in value system. So, they blame the Trumpism now because there's too much of push from the liberal left on so many ideas. So I don't know now, even for Bhutan we are questioning that because we have been so successful in this exemplary GNH, but we are losing 60,000 young demographic people away from Bhutan and they all want Australia. So that really sort of puts us in not on a pedestal, but I guess where you really question and reflect on whether we are really doing this right or not. So I think my question to you is, having been so successful, but at the same time, do you also sometimes have a doubt that this may be perhaps pushing the powers that be to really endanger all the good works that you have done?
The last part I don't understand. How pushing the power?
Well, I mean, for example, just like that we have experienced Trumpism, and I may be wrong, but one of the reasons we did is because there was too much of Clintonism and Obamaism, the push from the left side, the entitlement of environmentalism, entitlement of LGBTQT, the entitlement of all the identity politics. So I don't know whether how are you sort of navigating, and it is a reality, it's a possibility that there is a pushback either from mainstream or from as a result of wrong education, but for whatever it is, economics is, even in Bhutan, we are seeing the tug of war between these very, very powerful forces.
So I don't know if it is a backlash of valuing life in Bhutan, etc. But I think in Ladakh, what I think about why young people in Ladakh always want to come back. I'm very pleasantly surprised. They go anywhere in the rest of India and the world. They come back at half the salary or a quarter of the salary, but they come back. Partly it could be that they are very engaged in their own villages, with their own people, maybe due to the bad education system, because schools alone don't do much, so a lot happens in society. I don't know if our education system here should have a part where young people are made to engage with society at early age so that they feel a part of it. And when you feel a part of the challenges and the solutions, you perhaps don't want to leave. That's what happened with me. In my engineering years, I had to deal with failing students, teaching them and seeing all of them fail. I put engineering on my back burner and addressed that. My friends were all going to Silicon Valley. I could have easily gone to any part of the world in the 80s and 90s. Yet I was, attracted to where the challenges were, where the problems were, to solve them. So perhaps there should be more engagement with real life, real world. Real doesn't mean Thimpu life. May not have enough challenging, things for young people. Rural life, in Rukha, for example, they have the challenges. And if young people feel I'm so effective in making a change in their lives, they might want to gain all the knowledge of the world as tools and come back to make it better. So I'm also observing and feeling sad about how young people are leaving after so much good has been done for them. So perhaps the answer may be in making them feel more a part of the need of the society.
And the second thing is that therefore, from left or right, we have to center ourselves. And it is not environmentalism versus development, or vice versa. It is responsible development. And that's where even Hayal is engaged in. For instance, Indian government is looking at gigawatts of power in Chantang region, where there are, the goat herders, Pashmina goat. So I'll just explain to you how we can do away with binaries and be centered, okay? So the environmentalists would say, leftists would say, no development should happen because herders are living there. Okay, the right wing would say that gigawatts of power can be produced and India can export, Ladakh can export to the rest of India and make money and, we can be more. So, but where is the center? So the center is in developing in a way that the herders are helped, okay, rather than displaced. And so one of Sonam's innovations was, and which we tried at our campus, was under the photovoltaics, which would take up acres of land, can we grow fodder? Because the Pashmina goat, they die in winter, because for 6 months the whole thing is covered under snow. So if we took different transparency levels of the photovoltaics and we grew different kinds of fodder, and we found that it can indeed be grown. And if you give this as a research, paper to the government, and then they can integrate this fodder, then the people in Chantang will embrace this development, because they are first of all not displaced. Secondly, their animals can get more fodder. So we are talking about not left or right, but a right center, and development which takes into account not just bottom line or maximizing shareholders' wealth, which we are taught in school, but to increase the well-being of every stakeholder, and that is the systems thinking that has to be brought into development, and that is why transdisciplinary approach in problem solving is what we do in Hayal. So we are not against money or economics or development. You can, as he said, buy the 45th shoe, but we should know what we need, and whatever else we develop or earn, fairly and generously share where it is needed. And we had such students, we had such people in India and in Bhutan, where Loka Sangraha, as the Gita says, or doing for the upliftment of society was the purpose of education. It is only now we have learned this behavior of individual, bank balances. We can very easily go back to that value system. It is just beneath the surface.
So if a high school student or a university student was engaged in a project that could have the answer to the conflict between herders and government, so that it's a win-win, and they see things happening, changing, they are more likely to want to be here and be useful in this great solution. I think the reason for migration, depression, drugs, a lot of these issues is loss of self-worth. If you don't find yourself, needed anywhere, then you might as well flow like autumn leaf anywhere, any part of the world. So engaging them with real life and making them feel their worth might be a great way to make them rooted enough to come back with solutions.
And these economic theories, if they are taught as living, ideas, like we were discussing in the car earlier, that there is an economic theory that maps wealth with satisfaction, So when wealth is zero, satisfaction is zero. When wealth increases to a point, satisfaction or fulfillment or happiness increases. But after a point, it plateaus. Even though wealth increases, fulfillment does not. So if this is taught to the students, that after a point when you have taken care of your own needs and your family's needs, you can start working for the larger stakeholder group, your community and village. Then you will have more fulfillment that money can give you. And this is something that has to come into the classroom and be taught.
Since she has brought it up, I would say, because it is a management institute and you said there are students from finance, I would urge, this is called Easterlin's principle, or Easterlin's paradox. This is what gurus would always say, but why would anybody accept gurus? They are just too guru-y, preachy, right? So this economist called Easterlin did actual surveys and studies in the 70s and came up with this graph of wealth and satisfaction or happiness. So I think management institute in a country like Bhutan must have Easterlin's paradox and law of diminishing marginal utilities as the forefront of their economic theory. Perhaps you may see some change in how many MBAs go to Australia then.
And our friends who are doing that work in Rukha have seen that on social, emotional, they are very high. But financial and intellectual, they are very low. So even that is not a very good place to be in. So financially, one has to have a minimum, to live comfortably. So it's a balance of all these things.
Yeah, so not so much an ideological backlash, it's more probably meeting the minimum economic living standards that forces a lot of young people out. Maybe we'll take one question from online audience and then wrap up the session.
So the question is, why is the education sector getting over-politicized? Should it be kept away from politics? Is there a one-size-fits-all system?
Sonam, but maybe to set the question in context, we have had this case in recent times of each government coming in with new interventions, all with good intention to make education better. But people perceive that as being politicization of education.
So maybe I'll take it up and then Sonam can join in. So we had World Wars 1 and 2, and the World Wars 3 and 4 is predicted to be on simpler things like water and air, and even on narratives. It is no more, we have evolved. We don't go and kill somebody physically, geographically, but we invade the minds. So why education is becoming highly politicized? Because the next weapon is the mind. Okay, and everybody wants to control your mind, be it the large multinationals that want you to buy something, or be it a certain prime minister who wants to win the elections. The next commodity, which is very important, is not land or gold or anything, it is the human mind. And education is that weapon, as has been said also, that sharpens that resource. And that is why also people want to have a piece of your mind, and control it. And that's why education is getting politicized. And that's why the need for liberal arts education as well.
But that's also a maybe good sign. I would be more worried if it was ignored than if it is politicized. Means everybody is really thinking of education as something close to people's hearts and minds. I don't know much about the status, but I can say it's not necessarily a very bad sign. But the answer perhaps might be in the people, the citizens being very aware of things, so that if they do something hanky-panky, they lose more than gain. So therefore, often in democracy, it's the citizens' wisdom that guides. It's a fallacy to say people follow leaders. In democracies, leaders follow people's moods and tendencies. So be so wise that they'll compete to do the best and thereby politicize.
And Dr. Karma was saying earlier that this is Kali Yuga. So one of the definitions of Kali Yuga is, as Sonam was saying, that we don't need an external guru or a teacher. We can have a one-on-one. We can all grow to that state where we have the wisdom within us. That is the definition of Kali Yuga. So we are right there now. There is a crisis of consciousness, there is a crisis of leadership, there is a crisis of mentorship. We don't find outside people who can guide us. And so what is the answer? We rise to be that. Be the change that we want to see. And that's what education is.
Yeah, we could go on talking about education and the environment and economy. We've already spent an hour and a half. I have my last round of questions, if you don't mind, and then we'll break for some refreshments. And the last round of questions is very personal and specific. You are very powerful, very effective people. So how do you keep yourselves on top of things? Agile, smart, fresh. What kind of books do you read? Would you recommend a book or a film you watch that young people should watch? So any secrets of your efficiency and success, both of you?
I think we are children at heart. We never grew up.
Okay.
That's one of the things. So excited, curious about everything that we come across and see. And that's one thing I can remember.
I don't know if we are at top of things. It's always a struggle, and that's good. Books, people read lots of books, actually read the book of life, read people and their stories and learn from ordinary people. They are full of books inside. It's just not been brought down in black and white. That doesn't mean they don't have so much. So I've always believed in connecting and learning from people, which is much more than reading a book. So be curious, learn from everyone that you come across, from a young boy to a guru. So that's what I would say. Read the book of lives around, life lessons. And the film, the best film to watch is the film in which you are the star. That's your life. Don't follow any stars, just be the star and act like stars. That's what will do you more good than any Hollywood and Bollywood. Thank you.
And just to add to that, I think fitness is very important. So eating right, working out, because the body is the temple of the spirit. So at least 1 to 2 hours a day, as long as you're eating, should be working out. And my favorite book, though, is Jonathan Livingston Seagull.
Okay.
I don't know if some of you read it, but it's finding that perfect seagull within. Finding, as Sonam said, your uniqueness within. And that's the book that I always, it's the first book that all my students get to read when they join our fellowships. Yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I at one point even thought of translating that book into Tibetan and Dzongkha. It's a very inspiring book, indeed. And of course I was linking it to Bhutanese spirituality in a big way. So thank you. It's been such a wonderful session. We started with the question of where we are heading, and with people like you, I think at the helm, we have some surety that we'll be heading in the right direction, and I hope there'll be more and more people who will follow. Going forward, we'd certainly like to connect with you more, to exchange between Bhutan and Ladakh, the kind of 𝐸𝐭 in action that you're doing on the other end of the Himalayas. And then one of the things I want to note, and I already shared this in Paro, Bhutan and Ladakh has this very old historical link. I would like to offer a book, which is the biography of Bhutan's first ambassador to Ladakh towards the end of the 17th century and beginning of
17th century, we've been connecting, so we carry on. So let's not disconnect.
Yes, and you'll find probably a lot of information about 17th century Ladakh.
Okay,
from his
thank you
account.
so much. Thank you so much.
You can read and also use it for a library. This is not to show off, but you'll find some accounts of Indo-Bhutan relationship, Ladakh-Bhutan relationship in this as well. Yes.
Okay.
And there's some things here about the Loden Foundation and some local products.
Thank you so much. We are carrying back the whole of Bhutan.
Like Hanuman.
When I come as a host for the Bhutan Dialogues, try to always end the session with a local wisdom. I didn't really find any particular piece of wisdom this time, but if we relate ourselves to the topic, which was where are we heading, I believe Ladakh and Bhutan are at crossroads. This is what I would normally tell people. So it's not too late to steer towards the right direction. And we say in Dzongkha, Lamage Lapsagu, Chummage Sambivulu. That yet on a bridge, yet to cross the river, on a pass, yet to cross the mountain. And I think we have at this point a direction we can choose. So not too late for us to rethink for purpose of education and development. So thank you very much. Thank you for coming back.
Thank you. We are both very small, Bhutan, Ladakh, and medicines are always small but have huge effects. So let's be medicines for this ailing world. Thank you.